WADR, promoting dialogue.
Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. This is NewsLink. Here are the top stories. Sierra Leone President Biya confirms arrest of rebel leaders and assures citizens of maximum lasting peace and democracy. Liberia's outgoing head of state, George Weah, urges effective collaboration with transition teams for a smooth handover.
Public Corporations and Autonomous Agency of the government has sent a call for full cooperation in facilitating the transition by diligently preparing the 10 overnotes.
Ministers of Economy of the Sahel Alliance states hold maiden roundtable discussion in Bamako, and Nigerian civil society organizations declare vigilance for complete withdrawal of French troops from the country. Details of these stories and more coming up shortly.
Here is Tawfiq Abdul Nasser with NewsLink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in Liberia, Ghana, and the Gambia. Our top story takes us to Sierra Leone, where President Julius Maada Bio has reiterated his government's resolve and strong determination to protect democracy in the country. Given the assurances in a televised address late Sunday following an attack at the Wilberforce military barracks and correctional facilities by unidentified armed individuals, President Biya said most of the leaders of the attack had been arrested, adding that security operations and an investigation were ongoing. For the moment, it is unknown if the incident was an attempted coup or a rebellion, but a sweep operation has commenced to hunt down the rebels. The country, in the meantime, remains under a curfew, with residents asked to stay indoors. We will bring you more updates in the second half of the bulletin. Meanwhile, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has condemned the incident, promising to protect democracy and good governance at all costs. The United States Embassy in Freetown issued a similar statement calling for the immediate arrest and prosecution of those responsible. With the sub-region shaken by waves of unconstitutional changes of governments and failed coups in the last 3 years, Freetown's incident raises questions about the future of democracy in West Africa and ECOWAS' show of force to prevent any power grab. Dr. Oluwole Ojewole, ENACT Regional Organized Crime Observatory Coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies in Dakar, speaking to WADR on these issues, also highlighted coup trigger factors.
What I can say generally in terms of what is happening in West Africa is that, one, the seed is sown when people also engage in some constitutional coup. Constitutional coup in the sense of maybe amending the constitution to seek third term or to remove term limits, or even hijacking democratic process, determine an electoral outcome. So when all these things are taking place in the country, I think there are signs of early warning that something sinister might happen thereafter. But what I must add on this is that ECOWAS is going to come down decisively on anybody, any entity within state that make attempts to undermine democracy going forward in the region. I think it's a statement that can be taken to bank, and it's going to be credible in the days to come. So people are not going to tolerate anything that undermine democracy or constitutional change of government. And ECOWAS, I'm not speaking on behalf of ECOWAS, but I'm just speaking as someone who can read into the event, particularly what has happened in Niger. And then if anybody now want to pour additional cold water, I think it's going to be met with serious resistance.
Dr. Oluwole Ojewole is a security expert. We cross over to neighboring Liberia, where President George Weah is calling on his officials to collaborate with the joint presidential transition team aimed at ushering in the new administration in 2024. Weah lost the November 14 runoff election to 78-year-old Joseph Boakai, who once served as a vice president for 12 years. WADR's Darlington Popper in Monrovia reports.
President Weah encouraged officials of the outgoing administration to submit their 10-over notes to the joint presidential transitional team. Such, he says, will signal to the world that Liberia is a democratic state.
My administration is therefore proud that we have reinforced our credential as a mature democracy that is governed by strong institutions with respect for the rule of law. Public corporations and autonomous agencies of the government, I send a call for full cooperation in facilitating the transition by diligently preparing the 10-over notes.
Speaking during the meeting, President-elect Joseph Boakai appreciated the outgoing administration for the peaceful transition, whilst calling on members of the joint presidential transitional team to ensure honesty and respect during the execution of their task.
And I want to say that the President and I, of course, we stand ready to intervene for any area in which you would like us to. So we admonish that we all work together in the interest of our own country, and that within the time, pray that we will show the most respect by participating in full.
While the transition process is ongoing, it is no secret that Liberians are deeply divided along political lines. A major cause for concern, says the National Executive Director for the Liberia Peacebuilding Office, Edward Morba. He is appealing to the incoming administration to focus more on national healing and reconciliation.
The actions that government should take to ensure that reconciliation is deeply seated, is deeply rooted into the fabric of the society, so that the governance processes can be consolidated. Because in the absence of reconciliation, the process of governance cannot hold.
The transitional team is expected to conclude its tasks in December before the president-elect takes his oath of office in January 2024. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Pokwa in Monrovia.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
And now to the Sahel, the first ministerial meeting of the Alliance of Sahel States, which brought together the economic ministers of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, was held in Bamako over the weekend. Economic issues and several development projects were discussed within the AES. Earlier, experts had met to discuss trade and food security, among other issues. Sang Donald Mendy has more in this report by Bamako correspondent Ali Cham.
Trade, food security, the free movement of people and their goods, transport, energy and industry were among the main points raised by the three ministers of the Alliance of Sahel States. According to Al-Husseini Sanu, Mali's Minister of Economy and Finance, the three Sahel countries will have to put in place a common strategy to ensure a prosperous economy within the AES.
This meeting will provide an opportunity to reflect on the strategic concerns shared by the three states of the alliance with a view to accelerating the process of economic and financial integration. Above all, it will be a question of assessing the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats facing the alliance of the Sahel states.
For his part, Momoni Boubacar Seydou, Niger's minister delegate to the Prime Minister in charge of finance, believes that strong action must be taken to guarantee the alliance economy independence.
63 years after their accession to international sovereignty, our countries are still seeking true independence. In this context, as leaders, we have a very clear choice to take vigorous action to break the chains of dependence. We are convinced that the creation of the AES will enable us to achieve this goal of sovereignty.
At the end of this meeting, the ministers of economy of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger reaffirmed their desire to strengthen their cooperation in order to achieve their objectives. Next Thursday, the foreign ministers of the three countries of the Alliance of Sahel states will meet to discuss political and diplomatic issues.
Sang Donald Mendy voiced that report by our Bamako correspondent Ali Chan. In Niger, the Patriotic Front for Sovereignty says it remains vigilant through its Citizens Watch Brigade until the last French soldier leaves the country. This platform is a coalition of civil society organizations in Niger. The front, in a press statement issued in Niamey, also reaffirms that it is not a support committee for the ruling junta, as is the case for some civil society organizations in the country, but rather a partner of the CNSP. Ibrahim Bana is the communications officer of the Patriotic Front for Sovereignty.
Nous restons vigilants à travers nos brigades.
We remain vigilant through our brigades of citizens, watchmen who until today ensure the permanent watch day and night until the departure of the last French soldier. This is not the will of the partisans of France and the ECOWAS, who, after having called for the Nigerian people to be suffocated by the suspension of electricity, the non-supply of pharmaceutical products, and the suspension of basic necessities, the closure of the banking sector, and the closure of the presidential palace of our country to restore their so-called normal constitutional order. Today, all hope is lost. These adventurers no longer know in what sense to go. They only have to entertain the illusion of a division of the Nigerian civil society to announce a break between the National Council for the Protection of the Homeland and the Patriotic Front, and to decree the end of a struggle which neither the initiators nor the sincere actors were involved in. But they are reassured that they have already failed. The Patriotic Front for Sovereignty reiterates once again that it is not a support committee, but a partner of the National Council for the Protection of the Homeland, whose commitment is neither seasonal nor selective, as is the case with some organizations that were born after the 20th of July 2023.
C'est le cas de certaines organisations qui sont nées après le 21 juillet 2023.
Ibrahim Bana is the communications officer of the Patriotic Front for Sovereignty. You are listening to NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Sierra Leone President Biya confirms arrest of rebel leaders and assures citizens of maximum lasting peace and democracy. Liberia's outgoing head of state, George Weah, urges effective collaboration with transition teams for a smooth handover. Ministers of Economy of the Sahel Alliance states, AES, hold a maiden roundtable discussion in Bamako, and Nigerian civil society organizations declare vigilance for complete withdrawal of French troops from the country. Still ahead is the press review, guest interview, and sports update. Stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Now, gunmen have attacked 4 villages in Zamfara, a northwestern state of Nigeria, where they killed 1 person and kidnapped about 150 others over the weekend. Those kidnapped included women and children, eyewitnesses report says. WADR's Usman Umar in Abuja tells us more.
Lawali, not his real name, a resident of Gusau, the capital of Zamfara state, who spoke to WADR off record on Sunday, said the gunmen who rode on many motorcycles attacked the villages of Mutunji, Kwanardute, Sabon Garin Mahuta, and Ungor Kawo in the Maru local government area of the state simultaneously on Saturday morning. He said many people are still unaccounted for as the villagers fled in different directions for their lives. Another victim who spoke to Reuters said he managed to escape when the attackers were regrouping them alongside other victims from other neighboring villages. Reuters reports that a local village head said Lawali Damana leader of the gunmen had demanded 100 million naira, that is 119,000 United States dollars, from the villagers as retribution after Nigerian troops killed 4 of his men earlier. Kidnapping for ransom has become rife in northwestern Nigeria in recent years, where armed gangs, often referred to locally as bandits, have targeted villages, schools and travelers, demanding millions of naira in ransom and making it unsafe to travel by road or to farm in some areas. There is yet to be a statement from the police or the Zamfara state government, but local vigilante leaders said they estimate the number of those in captivity from the 4 villages not to be less than 150, including women and children. Nigeria faces numerous security challenges, including a 14-year Islamist insurgency in the northeast, separatist violence in the southeast, and frequent deadly clashes between farmers and herders in the north-central and northwestern regions. It is still unclear how the 3-month-old administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu plans to halt this spate of insecurity in order to gain the confidence of foreign investors, he said, are key to reviving the country's ailing economy. For NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Ghana is set to host worldwide cybersecurity experts at the Global Conference on Cyber Capacity Building 2023. The conference, which is scheduled for the 29th and 30th of November, is aimed at building the capacity of cybersecurity professionals in Ghana and other parts of the world to deal with the complex issues confronting that space. From Accra, WADR's Nadede Tete reports.
The maiden edition of the Global Conference on Cyber Capacity Building 2023 is, among others, aiming to strengthen global coordination efforts and widen the pool of resources available in addressing cybersecurity issues. President of the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise, Christopher Painter, wants countries to work together in order to build a cyber resilience space.
What this conference is meant to do is to bring the traditional development community, because now cyber runs everything, and the cybersecurity community together to make common purpose and to make all of our efforts more impactful and longer, and really carry this into the future, because this is going to be a keystone to our digital futures for all of us, including for Ghana, which has been a leader in the area.
Director General of the Ghana Cybersecurity Authority, Dr. Albert Ntriboisiako, added the conference will help in understanding the global trends in cybersecurity and how to effectively deal with them.
The importance of the conference is, minimum to understand the current global threat landscape. What sort of experience are different countries were having? 2, what kind of responses do we need to implement in each member country to be able to that? But also even to assess the adequacy of those measures.
The GC3B 2023 will bring together over 1,200 decision makers, practitioners, and experts. The conference will also witness the announcement of the Accra Call, a global action framework that supports countries in strengthening their cybersecurity resilience. For WADR, Nadede Tete, Accra.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Usman Umar in Abuja is here with the major headlines from the Nigerian dailies.
Hello and welcome to the press review segment. Today we'll be taking a look at 2 major newspapers, Daily Sun and the Daily Trust newspapers. Of course, the Daily Trust is leading with the story, banks jittery over CBN's fresh recapitalization plan. CBN, of course, is the Central Bank of Nigeria. We take a leave of the Daily Sun newspaper to take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper, which is leading this morning with a story, 5.6 billion naira wheat project scam. Ex-NEWSL boss arrested 11 months after sacking, with rider nabbed lobbying for reappointment, with another rider bowls away 32 official vehicles, and then the last one says no comment. This is coming from the DSS. Of course, almost a year ago after he was sacked as the managing director of the Nigeria Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing System for Agricultural Lending, that is NEWSL. Aliyu Abdul Hamid has been arrested over the weekend. Of course, NEWSL is a $500 million non-bank financial institution, which is a creation of the Central Bank of Nigeria, mandated to manage agribusiness-related credit risks in Nigeria. Abdul Hamid was kicked out of office following allegations of corruption, including a 2018 5.6 billion naira wheat project meant for farmers in Kano and Jigawa states. Of course, his sack was endorsed by the board of the Central Bank of Nigeria following approval by the presidency in December last year. And it's on this note that we draw the curtains on this edition of Newspaper Review from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. My name is Osman Umar, and it's back to you in the studios.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Following our previous coverage of the attack on the Wilberforce military barracks and correctional facilities in Sierra Leone by unidentified armed individuals, leading to the imposition of a curfew in the country, we have John Whitterfield, a Sierra Leonean journalist, joins us. Hello, John. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Right. So can you provide an update on the current status of the security operations in Sierra Leone following the attack on the Wilberforce military barracks and correctional facilities?
Well, as I speak right now, the security is still on high alert based on what happened yesterday in the very early hours of between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. Already the security had done its best in terms of, according to what the president says, pushing back the assailants. They refer to those who fought against the state as assailants, and things have returned to a little bit of calm because the indefinite curfew has been lifted, and another curfew has been reinstituted, but this time it's from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. So it's a little bit of calm in the city because people can go about their normal businesses now, even though some are with what we call uncertainty. But the security level is still tight.
Right. So how are the residents coping with the restrictions, and what measures are in place to ensure their safety as well?
Well, remember when the 3 a.m. shooting began and many people could not place their hands to know what exactly happened, the indefinite curfew was slammed. And this curfew was slammed because, according to the security apparatus, was to isolate the assailants from the civilians because they did not want the civilians to be hurt. And at the same time, according to the reporter, I told us that the assailant did say that the operations was not to hurt any civilian, but to clean what they call the society. But now civilians are moving, even though some still do not know what is happening because we only had the president address the nation yesterday night, but we still could not place our hands to get full details of who were really the assailants because these were soldiers in combated uniforms. So it is difficult from a civilian point of view to distinguish who were the assailants and who were not the assailants. But people are moving right now, going about their daily bread, even though some are still in shock, some are still in panic. Students should have started exams today for many schools, but as I speak to you, I could not see any child in any uniform because parents could not let their children go to school.
Right. So based on earlier speculation, has there been any clarity on whether the recent incident at the military barracks and correctional facilities was an attempted coup or a rebellion?
The government seems to be hesitant to name it an attempted coup, because according to them, they are still investigating. Now, when the president made his statement yesterday in a nationwide broadcast, it says that most of the leaders have been arrested, with operations and investigations still ongoing.
So, what information is available about the individuals behind the attack? And has there been any confirmation on their motives as well?
Well, the only confirmation we have from the president is that leaders have been arrested, investigations are ongoing, because this is within the military. This is within security apparatus, and these are men in combated form. Even though you have some civilians, but you cannot tell because they wore civilian clothing that they are civilians. Probably they are close protections, maybe according to the president, they are aliens being disguised. But now that they have arrested leaders within the military form, and now that they are going to investigate, they can be in a better position now to shift the wheat from the tares and know whether indeed these people were within the army, or probably they are military people but not from within the army. But at this point, it is difficult to tell.
Right. Thank you very much, John, and keep us updated with any emerging development.
I will definitely keep updates.
Right. John Whitterfield is a Sierra Leonean journalist. Sankule Jamko joins us now with the sports update.
Hello out there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Togo are crowned champions of West African Football Union WAFU Zone B CAF African School Football Championship Boys Final after a 1-0 win over Ghana on Sunday in Lomé. Midfielder Iwa Eso Desam's 6-minute strike was enough to earn Togo the title. Ghana fought hard to level the scores, but the Togolese youngsters defended resolutely to take home the crown. Meanwhile, Benin beat Cote d'Ivoire 2-0 in the boys' final of the WAFU Zone B CAF African School Football Championship also played on Sunday. Goals scored by midfielder Ridwan Yerima and Mubin Ayamudu secured the title for the West African side. The battle for the third spot saw Ghana edging past Nigeria in a penalty shootout after a goalless regulation time, securing a 5-4 victory on penalties according to media reports. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We have come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudu Juf for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at WADR News, on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Tawfiq Abdul Nasser. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to News.